Today's one of those episodes that grabs every 49ers fan by the heart. A defensive chess piece just became a national debate. A respected veteran slid onto the radar. The offense might get a new wrinkle right when it looked predictable, and there's a small detail on Shanahan's call sheet that shifts the vibe for the weekend. Feel the tension? The tide seems ready to turn, but it comes with a cost, tough choices, and a decision that could shake the locker room. What would you do if you were in the front office? You won't believe what we've got today. So sit down, drop a like, and let's get into the news.
He didn't blink.
When John Lynch went on KNBR 680 and heard the question every fan dreads, are you going to make a move after Bosa's injury, the general manager was blunt. We're always looking. Simple words with a clear message. Even before the disaster, the 49ers were combing the market. After the torn ligament to our edge terror, the magnifying glass only got bigger. Who's coming? The size of that answer defines ambition, cost, and most importantly, the signal the front office sends to the locker room in the weeks ahead. Of course, the big-name lights are tempting. Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati is a constant pocket threat. Bradley Chubb in Miami knows the path to the quarterback. But stars are expensive. Heavy draft capital, immediate cap impact, tough negotiations with teams in no rush to give up premium assets. And let's be honest, the front office needs to keep some powder dry for potential needs on offense and for keeping the core intact. That's why the smart talk also looks to the middle ground. Bolster the group, plug the hole, and keep flexibility. That's where a rarely mentioned name suddenly fits like a pragmatic solution. Cameron Jordan, a veteran, 8-time Pro Bowler, age 36, still squeezing production with a sack and a half on a Saints team that opened 0-3 and appears to be leaning into a rebuild without a short runway to contention. Jordan isn't a 10-sack promise. He's experience that steadies the room. What does he actually bring? Refined technique against the run, heavy hands to collapse the edge, quick reads that elevate young guys around him. In a locker room that just lost its alpha in the trenches, a leader like that changes the tone at practice, speeds up communication in the huddle, and offers the kind of intensive course that turns flashes into consistency. And there's the financial piece. A cap hit around $10 million already prorated on the calendar, a deal through 2026, and a New Orleans front office that might welcome day 3 picks to stock a rebuild. With the right package and some salary engineering, the math works without tying our hands later. Does it make sense for us? As a bridge, yes. A rotation with Yetur Gross-Matos, the young depth, and a veteran of this caliber reduces pressure on the scheme, allows more front variations, and, most importantly, holds the line while the defensive staff recalibrates calls without Bosa. Jordan doesn't mortgage the future and raises the floor immediately. The risk? Age and a crash course adaptation. The reward? Emotional and tactical stability in a unit that defines January. And remember, the 49ers routinely stack compensatory picks, so spending late selections doesn't dent the plan. What message does it send to the roster? We're not letting the season slip. Sometimes the right move isn't a splash. It's the adjustment that keeps the 49ers' identity intact. Physical, disciplined, relentless. Want to know the best part? This pass rush discussion could unlock another gear that's been stuck on offense, and that's not even the most surprising part of the day. Hold that thought, because the next point changes how defenses read our plan. One name had been missing. The 49ers offense had been surviving on improvisation, funneling targets to Ricky Pearsall, but without the respect of opponents who stacked the box to suffocate Christian McCaffrey and made it clear. Without Ayuk, without Jennings, this attack loses its fear factor. That script can change with the return of a veteran who knows what it means to be decisive and reappears exactly when Shanahan needs alternatives most. Demarcus Robinson. He was out 3 games, serving a suspension after an off-field mistake that could have shoved his career toward the edge. Meanwhile, Shanahan patched the receiver room with Sky Moore and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, pieces that never truly scared opposing defenses. The result was obvious. Against Arizona, the defense crept forward, squeezed space, and the offense turned predictable. Pearsall flashed, yes, but the plan stayed limited. Now picture Robinson on the field, aligned in the slot, bringing experience from the Rams and Chiefs, with timing tested in preseason with Purdy and even Mac Jones. He isn't a star, but he's the kind of player who creates room for stars to shine. Remember that season in Los Angeles with 7 touchdowns? That wasn't a fluke, it was reading leverage, suddenness, and a knack for exploiting system rules. And with Shanahan, every detail matters. Robinson's return changes the math, not just because he threatens the deep third, but because it forces defenses to respect distribution. McCaffrey gains daylight as a runner. Pearsall no longer carries the vertical stress alone. Even George Kittle, still on injured reserve, indirectly benefits. When he's back, he'll see lighter boxes and less compressed spacing at the line. For the fan base, this return hits the emotions. After 3 gritty wins and an injury list that felt endless, seeing a reinforcement arrive like a mid-season pickup sparks hope. It's as if the suspension turned into a stored weapon for the perfect moment. The locker room gets a familiar face. The quarterbacks regain confidence in a route tree already rehearsed, and the opposing defense now has to respect more than one target. Skepticism exists. 31 years old, an up-and-down history, and the shadow of off-field discipline still in the rear view. But in the short term, with Ayuk and Jennings battling their own issues, Robinson is almost a deadline answer delivered just in time. He may not be the flashiest name, but he's the type who can morph a rigid attack into something far less predictable. And don't get it twisted, Shanahan loves receivers who adapt on the fly. Robinson has already shown he can function in complex systems, and now he lands in perhaps the most sophisticated one in the league. This fit has everything to surprise out of the gate. But if you think that alone is a massive headline, hold on, because the drama around one of the most beloved receivers in this locker room is about to put everyone on edge. And that's where your chest tightens. Ja'Cory Jennings, the guy who carried the 49ers passing game in 2024, physical routes, strong hands, uncanny chemistry with the QBs, is living a frustrating season. First, the contract saga. No long-term extension, just an incentive-loaded pay bump, the kind of prove-it-again message that stings. Then the body pushed back. Shoulder and ankle issues pulled him off the field right when the team needed stability most. He didn't suit up against the Cardinals. The void was obvious, because while Pearsall shined, nobody occupies the space Jennings creates with sheer presence. He's that receiver who earns instant respect for his size, who forces cornerbacks to rethink their leverage. That missing element left the depth chart feeling incomplete, especially on the money downs where his physicality keeps drives alive. Practice turned into its own thriller. Wednesday and Thursday, no Jennings. Friday, a glimmer limited but present. Enough to ignite the debate, will he go against the Jaguars? Kyle Shanahan kept it coy, calling him questionable. In NFL speak, that's a gray zone that eats at fans right up to kickoff. And it wasn't just Jennings. The injury report read like a subplot. Mac Jones nursing a knee, Renardo Green dealing with a neck issue, Pearsall managing a knee, Connor Colby with a groin tweak. Add in the confirmed absences of Jordan Watkins and CJ West. It's a puzzle that forces Shanahan to reshape the plan drive by drive. Still, there was a spark of optimism. Pearsall, questionable label and all, told reporters he'd play. And Purdy was confirmed as the starter, making it clear the offensive hierarchy doesn't change when healthy, it's his team. That puts Jones in an interesting spot. It'd be a sweet storyline against his former squad, but the reality is Shanahan trusts Purdy to set the rhythm. Fans will track every rep, every warm-up throw, and every inactive list line on game day. The picture is clearer, but the stakes are higher. Depth, discipline, and timing decide September and shape January. For Jennings, the call becomes a locker room drama. If he plays even on a pitch count, the dynamics shift. More room for McCaffrey, less strain on Pearsall. A smoother runway for Robinson's return. If he sits, the weight slides back onto young shoulders, and the attack risks predictability. The emotional impact is huge. Fans want the warrior out there, but no one wants to gamble. September snaps and pay for it later. That's the tightrope fueling the debate. How far do you push Jennings? How far should Shanahan press his guys physically to secure early wins? The answer might shape not just the Jaguars game, but the group's confidence moving forward. And if you think we've hit peak tension, wait for the next turn. Because the quarterback confirmation paired with the final injury outlook could redefine how we see Shanahan's strategy for Sunday. Shanahan left no room for mixed signals. Brock Purdy is back. He practiced well, did a lot more than last week, and got the public yes from his head coach, changing the energy in the locker room and the expectation in the stands. With number 13 under center, the rhythm returns to progressions, the play action punishes linebackers, and the offense controls down and distance with quick game. That alone reorganizes the board, but Sunday won't be decided just by the signal caller. It runs through surgical choices on the active list and the discipline to manage the calendar's clock. Because the optimism came with alert, the injury report was direct. Renardo Green didn't practice Friday because of a neck issue and is questionable. When he sits, Darrell Luter has been first in. Jordan Watkins, TF, and CJ West, thumb, were ruled out. Yetur Gross-Matos also didn't work. Bothered by a knee, those together and a story emerges. The defensive rotation needs perfect execution from reserves. Clean communication and calls that buy an extra half second of rush without Bosa. On offense, the chess match is fine-tuned. Mac Jones is questionable with a knee, Connor Colby with a groin, Ricky Pearsall with a knee, Ja'Cory Jennings with shoulder and ankle. 4 variables that change groupings, splits, motion, and the third down menu. Purdy stabilizes the operation, but Shanahan must calibrate snap counts, identify who can beat press man, and decide when to stress the defense with bunch stacks to free rhythm throws. Each decision triggers something else. If Pearsall is cleared, the intermediate game opens. If Robinson takes volume, the defense must respect the deep crossers. If Jennings dresses, the edge physicality alters the short game. There's another inescapable factor. A Thursday game is up next. Short week. That weighs on the go, no-go for half the roster. You can't burn a player in September and lose 2 weeks for stubbornness. The staff's stance was clear. Cleared players play, those on the edge sit. That strategic break explains why Jennings likely becomes a warm-ups decision, with one eye on the Jaguars and the other on the schedule. It's the kind of management that doesn't make headlines but shapes January. With Purdy confirmed, the offensive build returns to what works. McCaffrey has motion bait to pull a safety out of the box, slants and outs on time to punish pressure, dagger and glance to hit zone windows, screens to slow the rush. If Jennings is active, third down changes instantly because he welcomes contact and separates late. If not, on the counter is tempo, sugar huddle, cadence, variance, light personnel to spread the defense, and trade explosion for efficiency, methodical drives and 3 points still apply pressure. And the defense, without Bosa, every Sunday becomes a lesson in multiplying role. If Gross Matos is limited, simulated pressures, interior twists, and well-timed second-level blitzes gain importance. A possible green absence trims the margin to send heat. With a patched-up secondary, calls must be precise, disguise pre-snap, correct leverage post-snap, and tackles that end plays at first contact. One blown rep becomes short field, one third down stand flips the clock, and field position for Purdy. On the other sideline, Jacksonville tends to hurry the count and test communication. That demands a lively sideline, fast alignments, and calm leadership in the huddle. That's where Shanahan's yes to Purdy matters most. The operation flows, hot reads ready, protection adjusted, ball out on the beat. With the starter back, the margin for error shrinks because the identity reappears. And when the identity returns, the stadium feels it. Lavos buzzes with the mix of hope and caution, understanding that Sunday matters for today and for Thursday. In the end, the message is simple and powerful. Aggressiveness with responsibility. Cleared players go. Those on the edge rest. Because the season isn't decided on one September weekend, but it can be shaped by today's discipline. The QB confirmation resets the standard. The injury report reminds you every drive has to count. And if all that already feels like enough to flip the switch, save some breath for the final debate, because fan insight is part of the plan as much as the sideline call sheet. So here we are, a vigilant front office, a pragmatic option for the DL, a return that rebalances the offense, and the starting QB back to set the rhythm. Sunday takes on the feel of a September thermometer and a rehearsal for Thursday. The season wasn't defined today, but the identity got tested. Would you swing for a veteran now or hold capital for the stretch run? Should Jennings be preserved or is the risk worth it? Drop your thoughts below. Subscribe, hit the notifications, and leave a like. We'll be back after the game with a fresh breakdown. Hold strong, Niner Empire. Together we roll. Share it too.